hope you all managed to have a short break, and welcome to the second half of this amazing morning on International Women's Day. We've had 4 amazing speakers so far, and huge thanks to Baroness Udine for such an amazing contribution to the event. So the second half, we have speakers from the UK. I say the UK, and you'll find out why in a minute when I introduce her, but that's where she currently is at the moment. So we have the UK, then we are whizzing to another continent, and we're going to Kenya, and then we are going to the Lebanon, and then we finish off with the USA. So to start off the second half, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Anna Segal. Anna is an Australian-German national who's just moved from Paris. You'll see why I say, when I say we're going to the UK, we could be going anywhere, really. Anna took up her new role as Chief Executive of the World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts in September 2020. This is an amazing organisation, and I had the absolute pleasure of working with them and visiting one of their world centres in Pune in India a few years ago, and it truly is an amazing organisation. Anna brings with her a wealth of experience working with multicultural volunteer-led teams as CEO, country director and general counsel. Anna has over 25 years experience leading complex operations in challenging environments, working with INGOs, the Red Cross, UNESCO, and the UN Agency for Palestine Refugees. She is a persuasive advocate and spokesperson for organisations and issues, and is a firm believer in the power of advocacy rooted in operational realities to influence decision makers, policy, and practice. Anna has significant experience delivering services and protection to refugees and advocating for refugee rights in challenging refugee protection environments. So thank you so much, Anna, for taking the time to join us, and over to you. You may need to take Dave.
Thank you very much, Katie. It's lovely to be here. I'm sorry I wasn't able to be here for the first half of the morning, but really looking forward to this segment. We were asked to talk about a challenge to ourselves personally or professionally, and I actually decided I needed to choose one of each. And it's partly coming back to what Katie was referring to about I'm a sort of a person who's lived all over the place. So I've lived in Australia. I'm Australian by birth. I've lived in Germany. I've lived in Israel, Palestine and Jordan. I've lived in France and Switzerland and Italy. And I suppose my personal challenge was how to feel at home in a place that's not home. And I remember reading a wonderful Isabel Allende novel of Love and Shadows, where the parents were giving advice to their children who were about to become refugees for a second generation, that wherever you're living and however long you're living there for, you need to live as though you're permanently there, and that's the only way you'll ever have a sense of home. So I think that how to make oneself create in a new place a set of friends, acquire a new language, get to grips with the culture and form a sense of being a part of the community. And I think I've managed to do that in all of the places I've lived. And it's very strange arriving in the United Kingdom in the middle of a pandemic, because it's been rather more challenging than it might have been otherwise, I think, to do the feeling at home. And one of the things that comes back to my volunteering experience is that one of the things that I've done since I've been here is join up with St John Ambulance to be a vaccination volunteer. And I think it's that sense of how can you contribute to the community that you're living in. And I think that's one of the reasons why this role as Chief Executive with the World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts is something that appeals to me so strongly. It's the new generation of girls and young women looking at how can they enjoy each other's company, how can they contribute to their own communities, how can they volunteer in their own communities, and how can they speak out on the issues that matter to them. So I think some of the things that you get when you do manage to settle in a new place is a feeling of adaptability and capability. And I think it gives you a new insight into your own culture and what it is that seemed normal to you when you were brought up in a particular culture, but is perhaps simply that which you learned culturally growing up in your own country. And as the child of refugees, I think all of that's been very important and has led me to the sorts of career choices that I've made. I mean, my grandparents and my father left Germany in the 1930s and fled to Australia, while other parts of the family fled to the United States and Canada and then Palestine. And I think that's what probably led me to be working in the field of human rights and conflict resolution and humanitarian law and working with refugees. For many years, I worked as a lawyer in private practice, and then I moved to work with Australian Red Cross to run their international humanitarian law program, looking at the law of armed conflict and how civilians and others need to be protected during conflict. And then I moved to work with the International Committee of the Red Cross, again working on the law of armed conflict and encouraging governments to ratify and implement international humanitarian law and adopt the Rome Statute for an International Criminal Court, so notions of international accountability for genocide and human rights breaches and war crimes. And then I moved to work with the United Nations Agency for Palestine Refugees, and I worked there for many years, for some of the time heading up the international law team, then heading up the legal team across the whole organisation, which provides services, assistance and protection to Palestine refugees in Lebanon, Gaza, Jordan, Syria and the West Bank. And in terms of a personal challenge, after many years of being a lawyer, I wanted to move out of advisory roles and into decision-making roles. I mean, being a lawyer is fun, particularly being a lawyer in the human rights protection, humanitarian law and refugee rights space. But I wanted to move from that advisory role to a role where I would actually be leading an organisation. And so I moved from the legal affairs, head of legal role with the UN Agency for Palestine Refugees. I had a big talk with the Commissioner General for the UN Agency for Palestine Refugees, and I said I would like to take over management of the Jordan Field Operation and become director of the Jordan Field Operation. Now, the Jordan Field Operation is it's an operation of 7,000 staff providing services to Palestine refugees, and there's a population of 2 million Palestine refugees living in Jordan. So the agency provides schooling up to grade 9 or 10. So there's 170 schools, 25 primary healthcare centres, 10 community-based rehabilitation centres, and then about 15 or so women's project centres. And I really enjoyed the experience of being in that sort of operational driving seat role and taking advice from others, but being the one who, at the end of the day, the decision rests with you. And I think what I learned from that is sometimes it requires persistence to get to the sort of position that you want. But if you do persist and you continue to accumulate experience and value sufficiently the experience that you've already had, and I think women tend to undervalue the experience they've already had, you will succeed in moving to the next thing that you're wishing to do. And in whatever that role is, you can make an enormous contribution. So those were my two challenges to self. And I suppose if I was going to give a few top tips, and they're very relevant now that I'm working with the World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts and working with girls and young women, it's be confident and believe in yourself. And this is really something that the girls and young women we work with are talking about needing to develop. And the corollary to that is you are enough as you are. Don't compare yourself to other people. Be happy with what you yourself achieve and aspire to improve in your own life the areas where you think you can further develop. And then the third one, have the courage to ask for help. I mean, I think having a really solid network of women and men who partner with you, who support you, who mentor you, and who challenge you is the best way to work on your own personal development and growth. So that's it from me, Katie. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you, Anna, so much. Incredibly inspiring. And really kind of what hit me about your talk was the matter-of-fact way that you described your experience in your life. Just kind of throwaway remarks as though it's kind of everyday thing. Whoa, okay, so you've done that then. Wow. And I think that is something about women. It's not that we take ourselves for granted, but we don't necessarily see ourselves as extraordinary. And sometimes it takes other people, whether that's a man or a woman, to tell us how extraordinary you are. So as one woman from another on International Women's Day, I just want to tell you how extraordinary you are. That's absolutely remarkable. And I love, asking for what you want, that adaptability and that capability and persistence. And what you just said, value the experience that you've had. That is so important. Never ever take ourselves for granted, but value our experience. We don't go out there. It's not about boasting. It's about owning. And I think, there's a fine line between that. It's not about saying, look at me, aren't I fantastic? It's about having that courage to own our brilliance, to own our power, and to own what we're good at, and not be embarrassed about it, not be ashamed by it, because actually that doesn't help anybody, least of all ourselves. And you're enough as you are. I mean, that is so true. We're always enough. There's no point in comparing yourself to other people. Always be yourself, because everybody else is taken. So we actually have no choice but to be ourselves, really, do we? And actually having the courage to ask for help, that is really, really good. Because, we're not superwomen and men aren't supermen. We can't, it's impossible for one person to be able to do everything. So thank you very much. It was really, really inspirational and inspiring. Thank you so much, Anna. It brings us now, we are now whizzing over to another continent, over to Africa, to introduce yet another fabulous, really, how many more fabulous women can this event hold? Quite a few, it would appear. So the fabulous Noreen Makasewi is joining us from Kenya. And as CEO of the Radical Leap company, Noreen is a sought-after specialist helping SMEs launch, grow, and expand through competitive strategies, information systems, innovative technologies, and market expansion solutions. Through her network, she facilitates linkages that yield strategic partnerships, knowledge sharing, access to new markets, and investment opportunities. Noreen has over 12 years' experience working with senior leaders and business owners from a broad range of organisations across 6 continents. Whether delivering keynotes at conferences, giving talks to groups, or contributing on live panels, Noreen delivers research-based, real-world thought leadership to inspire change. Outside of business, Noreen's philanthropic passion projects focus on youth development, women's empowerment, and special needs children. She runs private one-to-one career and business mentoring for youths aged 21 to 25 in Kenya. Welcome, Noreen. Wonderful to have you here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Katie. It's such an honor to be able to be part of this lovely community. I was just listening to the first half, and I'm so gutted that I didn't have enough space to take all the notes, but I'm glad that it's being recorded because there's so many nuggets shared. I'd like to acknowledge all the women who've spoken before me. So many life lessons, amazing things that even I'm taking away. Thank you, Roger and Katie. Thank you, Laura Murphy, for putting this together. I'm always very, I have a lot of respect for people who care for other people, because that is what we're here to do as human beings, is to remember that we're here to serve. And as we serve, then we are also rewarded for the service that we bring to humanity. So based on the request that was sent is to share our challenges, what we've been through personally and professionally. And I'm going to tell you a little story about myself. It's not something that I've often talked about, but I thought this would be the right forum for it. One, because it's International Women's Day, and I also think that it will deliver the message that I'd really like to share today. So I was born and raised in Kenya. I was born in post-colonial Kenya after the Brits handed over the country back to the indigenous people. And my father worked for the local administration that was instilling governance within the country. And what that meant was his job required him to travel across the country quite a lot. So he was placed at different stations, and they would put together the administration, the governance, and he would be required to move to the next station. So that meant that as a little child, as a young girl, I lived in quite a number of cities in the country of Kenya. I can't even count them, but all I remember is we'd be put in lorries and a convoy of trucks and move to the next town. My mom was not going to be left behind in one place. She said, if my father is going, we're all going together. So I had a very nomadic childhood, and that nomadism has stayed with me until now. And I remember one particular experience. Post-colonial Kenya wasn't very stable. It was volatile in some places. And we lived in what is now one of the most beautiful islands in Kenya, called Lamu. And my father was the district commissioner at the time. But that particular part of the country was rife with bandits, shifter bandits, because there was land disputes, and the bandits wanted the land and the government wanted to make sure that the land was secure. And so we had to leave the island in a matter of, let me say, minutes. And all I remember was gunshots and being carried like a little sack of potatoes and tossed into a boat, because it was literally an island. We needed to get in a boat to get to the airstrip to get off the island. So those are the types of experiences I grew up with. I laugh about it now, but I'm sure when I was a child, my mother wasn't very amused to be moving from town to town. But that was the nature of the life that we lived. And it took a toll on my parents' relationship. They were friends in the beginning, but I think as time went on, it became really difficult to manage what was a very demanding job for my father, my mother being required to stay in traditional, quote unquote, stay at home mom mode when she was really an entrepreneur at heart. So I saw how in each town and in each city that we moved to, she always created her own community of women. The women would come together, they would have conversations and have tea, they talk to each other about opportunities, and my mother was always selling one thing or the other. So my entrepreneurial spirit comes from my mother, and I really appreciate her for it. I migrated from the nation of Kenya. I migrated from Kenya to the United Kingdom at the age of 17. So after my father's work within the administration, obviously Kenya got to a place of stability, and the governance at the time was no longer required at that level. So my father was eventually given a desk job within one of the ministries, and life became more stable. We settled in the city, the capital city of the country, Nairobi, went to school in Nairobi, primary school and then high school. And after high school, I left Kenya and I moved to the United Kingdom. Now that was the beginning of my nomadic adventure as a young adult. And I came into a country I'd never been to before. I was very curious. I was very excited to leave what I knew behind to explore this new opportunity of living in a completely different country, different culture. It was a bit of a culture shock, but I took it on the chin, and I was really excited about it. And I remember I had enrolled at a college in Northwest London, College of Northwest London, and I enrolled to study information technology. Now, one of the things that I needed to do in the new country was to get a job, because students, you get a job, you look after yourself, and you supplement your the money that I had come with, which wasn't that much, and to supplement that with the money that I needed to earn. The challenge was, I was a 17-year-old in a new country. Every job required you to have experience. I think one of the previous speakers is in HR. 17, they wanted me to have at least 5 years experience, meaning I would probably have been a really young age to get that experience. I did not have the experience. They also wanted a reference. I had never had a job in the country. So let me say, the streak that I have in me, which I'm really grateful that I was created with, is stubborn and rebellious when it's required. And so I knew I need a job, I need experience, and I need a reference. And where am I going to get it from? I'm a young girl of a different race in a new country, and I've never tried to find a job. I'd have no experience and no idea how I'm going to get a job. But I lived in a nice neighborhood in North London, Neasden. And every week we'd get the local paper delivered through the letterbox. So I decided I'm going to look for a job. By hook or by crook, I'm going to look for a job. And so I scoured the paper, the paper one week, and I saw a post in the paper for advertising for opportunities for people to come and apply for a job. And if my father had known what job I was applying for, he would have had a heart attack because I lived a good life. My father did okay for himself. We didn't need anything. And I remember when I left Kenya, my father said to me, look, if it all goes to pot, you can get on a plane and come back home. You'll always have a place at home, okay? So don't go and suffer, don't go and struggle. But the streak in me wanted to make sure that I made it. So I saw this job in the paper, an article, and I remember waking up because I lived with a friend of mine who was in the same situation as myself. She was Kenyan, and we were sharing a house in Neasden. And she asked me, where are you going? It was very early in the morning, 6 o'clock. And I said, I'm going to look for a job. In fact, I'm going to come back with a job. And so I got on the bus and I went to one of a very lovely shopping center in North London, Northwest London. It was a good neighborhood. So it was a shopping center of affluent people. And I remember going to this place that had advertised for the job, and I walked in and it was literally a car wash. Okay. So my father, like I said, he would have died if he knew that is what I was going to apply for. But I needed a reference and I needed a job. And I needed somebody to give me an opportunity. So I walk into this place and a man, I remember him very well. He was a Turkish man. He owned the car wash, really nice cars, sports cars, 4-wheel drives, really, it looked like a well-to-do. But I thought, okay, I think I'm going to get a job here. And he looked at me and he asked me, how can I help you? I said, I've come about the job that you posted in the paper. And he started laughing and he laughed. And he laughed and he laughed and he laughed. And I was staring at him deadpan. I asked him, why are you laughing? He said, girls don't work here. And I said, well, this girl is going to work here. And he laughed at me. And so the guys, because it was all males, the guys walked up to us and they asked him, who is this and what is going on? And he turned around and he said, this girl wants to work here. And the guy said, oh God, no, girls don't work here. And I said, I'd really like to work here. And they just stared at me. So I said to the owner of the car wash, I said, look, give me that 4-wheel drive. And give this guy, one of his workers, give him a 4-wheel drive, give us the same equipment. If I wash the car faster than him and cleaner than him, you give me the job. He said, okay, I'll do that. And so he gave it to an American guy. It was it was all students. I could see they were really young. I was 17 and they were quite young, and everybody was young in the place except the owner. And he gave him the car. He gave him a car. He gave me one of the cars. We got the same equipment, everything identical. Gave me gloves. And what worked in my favor was when I was in Kenya, one of the things my father used to do with us is wash the car with us. It was one of the ways we did bonding. And so I knew all the tricks of what you do first. You do the wheels first, and then you do everything else really quickly. So by the time the guy was rinsing his car, my car was done and I was drying it. And everybody was standing around watching us. And I remember this really clearly. And the man looked at me, he shook my hand and said, you have a job. So I went home, and the next day I came with my friend who was also female. And he says, oh my gosh, we're going to have this place overrun with women. But I was sharing that to share this with you, that there are certain things that we are created with, certain characteristics, certain ideas that we're created with. And the things that people would laugh at us, because of, they wouldn't expect us to do certain things, or they place us in certain boxes that restrict our growth, those are the types of boxes I'm really against. That's the thing. Those are the things I rebel against. And my life has always been about breaking boxes and building tables for myself and for other people. And so that was the first job I had in the United Kingdom. I got my reference. I got my my experience. It was summertime when I got the job at this car wash. When winter hit, my friend and I knew that, no, your fingers are going to fall off. We need to leave now. We thanked him for the opportunity and we left. He wrote us a reference, and that was the beginning of us accessing the corporate market within the United Kingdom. And my friend and I, we talk about it until this day. We started off in a car wash. Nobody would expect that of us, but that was our opening to go into this foreign country. And my friend went on to work within investment banking, done really well for herself. I also went on to work in different corporate companies in hospitality and then within the investment banking sector. And I set up my consultancy, aptly named the Radical Leap Company, because that is what we do is I took leaps of faith myself. And what I do with the businesses that I work with is I help CEOs also take radical leaps within their business. But now our specialty is strategy, business technology, and market expansion. And when I worked in corporate, I set up my consultancy at the same time because I knew I had a very clear plan. I want to set up a business that's going to change lives. I don't want to work in corporate for too long because that has never been my dream. And I had a get out plan. I had an exit strategy, work in corporate by the age of 30, have enough money, invest in real estate, exit corporate, and do philanthropy because that is what I really wanted to do. But it didn't work out that way. At the age of 30, a betrayal happened within my personal life. I lost everything I had worked for. So I went to the UK, had worked really, really hard for many years. I was very meticulous with my money, very focused. I wasn't distracted, but everything that I had saved from the age of 17 until the age of 30 evaporated within one day. So I was now starting from not zero, but from negative. And so my life changed. My view of the world changed, but I needed to overcome this really dark space in my life. And that put me on the path of rebuilding tables for myself, because I knew that I needed to overcome this to become everything that I wanted to become. And I think one of the things that I love about the Wayfinder Woman Trust is helping people overcome uncertainty, especially now with COVID-19. There's a lot of uncertainty. A lot of people don't know what the next step is going to be. But I want to share with you that even through uncertainty, even through uncertainty, we can rebuild our lives. It might not look like what we expected it to look like, but it will be better. And the better is dependent on how we view life and how we approach the challenges that come our way. So fast forward, I lost everything, but I rebuilt again. It took me a long time, I won't lie. And through that whole process, there was a lot of stress involved. I got sick at some point, and Katie is a friend of mine, so she knows I've talked to her about some of the things that I've been through. And one of the lowest points of my life was a stress-related tumor that was found in my stomach by a doctor per chance. But it was a wake-up call for me. So I knew that I needed to rebuild my life in as stress-free as possible, which is not always the case. But I needed to create a life that I was proud of, but a life that I would enjoy no matter what came my way. And so that journey of rebuilding took me on a completely different path. I had to stay in corporate longer than I'd intended to. I wanted to exit corporate, be retired by 30, did not happen, but I stayed in corporate a little longer than I expected, and I rebuilt my life and I rebuilt my business. And then in October, between October and November 2016, I lost 4 close people, attended 3 funerals, and one of them was my sister. And that was the push that I needed. I just knew I couldn't do corporate anymore. I decided that I was going to take the radical leap, literally, and I left corporate and I decided to become the nomadic girl that I really am at heart. And I started to travel. I decided to travel. I always wanted to come back to Africa and do work and to change lives and to to share the knowledge that I'd experienced in a different country, in the areas of technology, in business. And that led me on the path to setting up Female Founders Africa, which is an initiative under the Radical Leap company focused on building a pipeline of bankable women-owned businesses on the continent so they can compete on a global platform. And I wanted to share that, that little journey of mine where it was a mix of personal challenges as well as professional challenges. And just to remind you that it's not impossible to come out of some dark places. It's not impossible to overcome those challenges. It's hard. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to give you a motivational speaker's speech. It's not easy, and it will not always be easy, but it's not impossible. And the three things that I just want to end with and to share with you is, you make a decision what the next season of your life is going to be like. I don't know what you're going through at the moment. You could be overcoming either financial hurdle, maybe looking at a different experience in business or in your professional life or in your personal life, but you make a decision of what that next season of your life is going to be like. I decided that the next season of my life, when I left the corporate world and decided to travel, the next season of my life, I was going to travel light and travel far. And when I left my corporate job, I decided to do an evaluation. I'm a minimalist. I actually believe I'm a minimalist. But when I decided to pack my flat and put things in storage, I did not realize how many vases I owned. I owned so many vases. There was vases in every room. I think I had like 15 vases. And I asked myself, what are you doing with all these things, Noreen? How many shoes can you wear? How many bags? I like bags, shoes. I like nice things. But what I decided to do was to lighten my load, my life load. And when I put my things in storage, I gave things away. Some things I gave away, some things I left in storage. But what it taught me was the less I carried through life, the easier it was to travel. And now I travel quite a lot. I've done work in different parts of the continent, East, Southern, West Africa, even the UK. And all of those experiences as a nomadic person makes it easy for me to do business across different continents and makes it easy for me to relate with different people. And so the three things that I'd just like to share is when you're choosing to challenge yourself, is to challenge yourself, and I do this for myself as well, is you challenge yourself to be more, to become more, to expand into this person that you know that you can become, to let go of the things that you know no longer serve you. They don't serve your business, they don't serve your team, they don't serve your family, they don't serve you as an individual. Is if you're looking to be more, you may have to leave some things behind, and you may have to streamline parts of your life. And letting go is not always easy, but if you're going to travel far, you have to let go so that you can be more, you can step into bigger shoes. And then the next thing I challenge myself is to earn more. I know a lot of people don't talk about money, but money is an important factor in the area of business, especially in the area of philanthropy. One of the things that I knew I did not want to do, and I know it's beneficial and we help businesses apply for funding and seek potential investment, but I want to be wealthy. I wanted to have enough to be able to bless other people. I want to have enough not to have to worry about my needs, my family's needs, and somebody who comes to me and say, Noreen, I really need your help. My child has not gone to school. And I wanted to earn more. So creating the opportunities for the income to come so that I can really make an impact in my community. And you can challenge yourself if that is something that you seek. And then the final part is to make a difference. Challenge yourself to make a difference wherever you are. You could be in a small space, a big space, a corporate company, an institution, it doesn't really matter, is to make a difference. I remember when I was 17, a mentor of mine asked me, Noreen, what do you want people to say about you when you're no longer in this planet, when you have left? And since then, until today, my answer has always been the same. I want people to say, that woman changed my life. And that's it in a nutshell. So every day I wake up, no matter what I do, any person I talk to, even if it's just for 5 minutes, I want them to say, I talked to that girl, I talked to that woman, she came into my business, she came into my family, and she changed my life. And that's really what I wanted to do today. I hope that what I've shared has inspired someone, made you laugh a little bit, maybe think about your life a little bit. But I just really wanted to share that with you. And thank you so much, Katie, for giving me the opportunity to be here and to choose to change together. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Noreen. That was absolutely wonderful. I've known you for 6 years and I had no idea about the car wash story. One of the wonderful things about life, we learn about ourselves and each other every day. So that was fantastic. And I loved you. And I loved the steely look in your eyes when you looked us all in the eye and said, stubborn and rebellious when required. Yeah, absolutely. I love it. And I think also what came through was our transfer of more skills. You know, who knew that your father teaching you how to clean cars in the most efficient way possible would actually be the springboard for your corporate career in the UK. So, you know, never, ever undervalue all of our life lessons. You know, even on the surface of it, they may seem inconsequential, but actually they can be unbelievably powerful. And what I loved was the decision for your next season. And I think that's really powerful. You know, what I say to a lot of women is the woman you were yesterday is dead. The woman you're going to be tomorrow hasn't been born yet. Who do you want her to be? So, you know, not to be defined, to learn from our past and allow it to shape us, but not necessarily let it define us, because we can choose to be whoever we want to be. And I love that in able to travel, you need less baggage. And that's not just physical baggage, but actually it is about not living in the past, isn't it? And actually recreating the future, and to be more, absolutely to be more. And I really love that you talked about money, because so many women are frightened about admitting that, about facing it. And money is innocent. It's what we choose to do with it that is important. And the desire to have money because of the choices it gives us to help others is amazing. So how refreshing to hear a woman say, I want to be wealthy. And I think more of us need to really own that and to recognize how powerful that can make us. And you always make a difference. You are one of the most beautiful people I've ever met, both inside and out. So I'm truly blessed to have you in my life, and thank you so much. And we'll welcome you back in a little while with the Q&A. Thank you, Noreen. So now it is my pleasure. We whiz over to another continent, and we're now going to Beirut. And it's my absolute pleasure to welcome another amazing woman who I met about 6 years ago, Dr. Raya Jabour. Dr. Jabour is a Lebanese-Canadian certified mediator and attorney at law. She was admitted to practice in Lebanon and the state of New York. Raya has over 10 years' experience as a legal advisor. She is passionate about public policy, human rights, and alternative dispute resolution. She is currently a legal consultant for the World Bank in Beirut to enhance women's economic empowerment in the Mashrek region. She's the general counsel for the Saradar Group and a professor in mediation at St. Joseph University. So Raya, thank you so much for joining us today. It's an absolute joy to have you, and the floor is now yours.
Thank you so much, Katie. It's really an honor to be here. Happy Women's Day to everyone watching us. I'm really thrilled to be here. It's been such inspiring stories to hear. I've been actually taking notes about all the tips you have shared with us, you know, breaking boxes and building tables. We learn in the valleys. What we give, we receive, and so many other very valuable tips. So thank you for that. Really, you are all change makers, and it's really a privilege to get to know you. So the challenge that I decided to share with you today is a challenge that is professional, collective, and also personal. So as Katie said, I'm a lawyer. I'm a corporate lawyer and a human rights lawyer. It's a weird combination, I know. I've always been passionate about equal opportunity, inclusion, equality, and diversity. So 6 years ago, I participated in a fellowship program in London, and this is where I had the pleasure to meet the wonderful Katie. And at the time, they asked us to work on a project to improve our country. And obviously, I chose to work on equality in the workplace. And in that context, I personally drafted provisions for equal treatment in the workplace, diversity with a focus on women and on sexual harassment. I put my heart and soul into these provisions. I was so excited about that, and I really wanted to make a contribution to my country. And I started knocking on doors at the time, ministers, members of the parliament, but nobody was interested. A, because gender was not a priority, and B, because nobody knew who I was. I wasn't affiliated to anyone, so they ignored me. Obviously, I was very disappointed, but I didn't give up. 6 years later, I find myself working as legal consultant for the World Bank, working on women economic empowerment in the Mashreq region in the context of a program called the Mashreq Gender Facility, which aims at closing the gender gap, increasing female participation by 5%, boosting legal reforms against all sorts of discrimination. And in that context, obviously, we went back to sexual harassment. So 6 years later, I was finally working on something I was so passionate about. It was challenging, of course, for so many reasons. Some of those reasons are, one, because sexual harassment was always viewed either as a taboo subject or as a joke. Gender was not a priority in Lebanon, especially given the alarming economic crisis we are going through at the moment. And the mentality in Lebanon is still, unfortunately, very patriarchal, even though I'm very happy to say that women have been speaking up more, they're more assertive, especially since the October 2019 revolution, where women have proven themselves to be real activists and they are not afraid to speak up anymore. It was also challenging because, you know, we have different points of views. You are dealing with different people coming from different backgrounds, all brilliant people, of course, on the legislative table, but it's always hard, you know, to agree on everything, especially when it's a new concept. Despite all those challenges, a year later, we managed to agree on a draft law. And for the first time in the history of Lebanon, we now have a law against sexual harassment in private spaces, public spaces, including the workplace. Of course, it's not enough. It's not perfect. We still have a very long way to go. But as you said, Katie, in the beginning of this talk, it's very important to stop, acknowledge what we've done so far, be kind to ourselves, and then move on and take someone along the way, right? So this is really a milestone for women's rights, and I was so happy to be a part of it, and I'm happy to celebrate this success with all of you. 3 tips that I would like to share with you. Again, I really enjoyed listening to all the tips you shared with us. I could not agree more with all of you. I hope I won't be redundant. The first one is to always listen to the little voice inside your heart. And actually, I wrote and self-published a children's book against bullying, which is called The Little Voice Inside. I think that this little voice inside that sometimes, unfortunately, we forget to hear because of all the noise in our lives, right? We're busy, we don't have time, or we don't have the space to hear it. And you mentioned, Katie, the small whispers, right? The small whispers. So this little voice, in my opinion, you want to call it the voice of truth, you want to call it the voice of God, you want to call it the voice of your inner self, no matter what you want to call it. This is the voice that will tell you exactly who you are meant to be, what it is that you are meant to do in this life. And this is the guiding force in your life. This is the voice that will keep pushing you forward to achieve whatever goal, whatever mission, or to overcome whatever challenge you are facing. You also can call it divine calling, as Dr. Anita said earlier. The second tip I would like to share with you, it's a bit linked to the first one, is that I'm a strong believer that life works for you, not against you. The universe works for you, not against you. So whatever it is that you want, have the courage to ask for it. Place an intention, articulate it, place it, ask for it, and then let it go. And trust the process. Trust the universe. It's not easy. It's not easy. It's a daily practice, right? Because we are doers. We want to make things happen. We want to control everything, of course. And I'm a strong believer that you live your life in partnership with God or the universe or life, whatever you want to call it. Of course, you have a huge role to play, but sometimes you have to trust, just let go and trust. And to be honest with you, there are things that I wrote in my diary maybe 10 or 12 years ago, intentions that I placed and that I wrote down. And now, fast forward 10, 12 years ago, I'm actually doing them. And sometimes I forgot about them, but the universe didn't. I attracted them. So this is my my tip number 2. So believe in the universe, whatever it is that you want, it will manifest. Tip number 3, and we've mentioned that already, it's that we as women, we are good communicators, we are good problem solvers, we are peacemakers. We have qualities such as kindness, empathy, compassion, tenderness, sensitivity that we shouldn't lose. You can be kind and strong. You can be compassionate, empathetic, and yet you can be firm and assertive without being aggressive, without, trying to impose yourself too much. I don't like these images of you. If you want to be a good lawyer, you have to be a shark. You have to talk during the whole meeting. You have to interrupt everyone. No, not at all. You can find the right balance. If you really believe in yourself, in what you're saying, if you are convinced of what you're doing, and as we said before, if it's aligned with your values, there is no need, to go against your nature. So nurture these qualities, right? Nurture your compassion, your kindness, your empathy. And these are our strong points as women. And I will conclude by saying that don't just aspire to make a living, aspire to make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. I love that. Inspire to make a difference. Don't inspire to make a living. That's absolutely fantastic. Because actually, if we inspire to make a difference, the living is likely to follow by default. And I love that. Listen to that voice inside of you. Yes. And I say to people that we work with, your higher self, the soul of who you are, the very essence of your being, will always see you as perfection. It is only your mind and your thoughts and the projections from others that get in the way of your perfection. So always know, on a soul level, we are all perfect, regardless of where we are in the world and what we do to achieve. We don't actually have to have an impact on millions of people. We just need to have an impact on one person. It's that the power of the butterfly wings is right. Incredibly powerful, because that will then go out, and that, it's like throwing that stone into a pond, isn't it? Those ripples, and those ripples get wider and wider and wider. And life definitely does work for you, absolutely. And it's about sowing the seeds and then being patient and hands up. That is so difficult.
Oh,
I remember years ago, a friend said to me, Katie, let go. Stop trying to control everything. Let go. So it's about knowing, look at your life as a garden. Some things will blossom very quickly. Others may take years. But have faith that everything flourishes and blossoms when the time is right, if you sow the seeds and you nurture the seeds. So brilliant. And yeah, absolutely. It's that power of the feminine, isn't it? And it's something that as women, we need to embrace and be proud of the power of the feminine, and celebrate men for the power of the masculine, because that's what creates an equal society. So fantastic. Thank you so much, Raya. We'll see you in a few minutes for the Q&A.
Yes.
Thank you. So now it's our last speaker of the day. And we are now going to the USA, to Palm Beach, and a very early morning. So thank you, Lovely, and well done for getting up. Sorry, it was such an early alarm call. Bless you for being with us. So Lovely is a mother, author, educator, children's advocate, and founder of Buddy Ambassadors, which develops campaigns to raise awareness on bullying and other mental and social issues affecting children. Through her books and campaigns, she champions for the rights of children all over the world and provides both adults and children the tools that they need to live their best lives. She has written 6 children's books, including her award-winning book, Be a Buddy, Not a Bully, and an autobiography, A Girl Like Me, about her amazing world travels. In 2015, she was awarded the International Athena Young Professional Leadership Award. This award honours women who have excelled in their professional endeavours, shown a commitment to the community, and have fostered a culture or shown leadership that has resulted in promoting women in leadership roles. So welcome, lovely, and how wonderful to have you with us. And the floor is yours.
Yes. Good morning, everybody. A special good morning to you. It's a morning time over here. I know it's afternoon over in your part of the world, but it's very early. And I have to first apologize a little bit because I may cough a little bit here and there. I got tested positive for the COVID. So the past few days have been a little bit tough. But as women, what we do, we push through, right? So that's what I'm doing this morning. I'm just pushing through. So thank you so much, Katie and the team for having me. Thank you to all the other phenomenal women. I woke up pretty early, so I was able to listen to quite a few of you, and it has been really, really inspiring. And what amazing things happen when women come together. You know, this is just really, really great. I definitely know that I have to connect with Raya. I hope I'm saying it right. I heard about her book on bullying. So we definitely have something in common.
Absolutely.
Okay, so my name is Lovely Sheridan, originally from the tiny island in the Eastern Caribbean of St. Lucia. And today, the theme is for International Women's Day is Choose to Challenge. And we only have about 10 minutes to share a message with you, not a very long time. So we sort of have to really condense this message and so that it's very impactful and powerful. And I hope that when I leave today, that something resonates or stay with somebody. So I am going to, when I say choose to challenge, when we talk about choose to challenge, I am going to highlight just how I chose to challenge myself in my private life and how it led me to my personal fulfillment in life, or my passion, or how it drove me into what I would call my destiny. Okay, so as a little girl growing up on the tiny island of St. Lucia, I had a dream, and my dream was to travel the world. I imagined what the world was like beyond the clouds. You know, what was beyond? I had never left the island. I didn't leave until I was 17. And so when the tourists would come into my island, I would always ask, you know, what is it like in your part of the world? And so they would come from the UK and they would tell me about the UK and the Buckingham Palace. They would come from Paris, France, and they would tell me about the Eiffel Tower and Egypt, the pyramids, and Venice, Italy, Venice, the gondola. And they would always share with me. And I remember just sitting there and just imagining and just like, wow, what it would be like. I imagined myself in that in front of the Eiffel Tower. I imagined myself in front of Buckingham Palace. I started to really have a dream for my life. I started to dream. And also I always like to play teacher. So I would sit with the other kids under the tree and I would start telling them about these far-flung places and start imagining myself there. And I think for a lot of, you know, my friends I still have a lot of my childhood friends who remind me of my vivid imagination back then. But what I didn't know was that I was really speaking my existence, my destiny. I was really speaking all those things into existence, right? Because fast forward 30 years later, having to travel over 60 countries now. But when I see the pictures of me in front of the Eiffel Tower, when I see myself on a gondola, when I see myself in front of the pyramids in Egypt and in front of Buckingham Palace and all these, I am just like, hey, I imagined that. I talked about that, you know, and that's one of the reasons why I create those workshops now for children and encourage them to develop their imagination, because that's where it starts. It starts with a dream. It starts within your mind. And so the first point, I will be stating my points as I go along, because as I said, I know we don't have a lot of time, but one of the first points I want to leave with all of you today, all the women, you all have a dream for your life, no matter what it is. Mine was to travel and to see the world and to really know what is out there, right? But you all have a dream for your life. And a lot of the times what happened to us women, because we are nurturers, because of how we are just from our whole placement in society, we are told that, we are here to serve others. And it's so quickly and so easy where we forget about ourselves. And that's happened to a lot of the women in pretty much all stages of their life. And so I want you today to challenge you to remember that dream for yourself as a child. What was your dream for your life? What stories were you telling yourself and others about what you want to do and what you want to achieve, whatever it is? What have you held on to that dream, or have you let go of that dream? So remember that God placed a vision in our mind. And I always tell my little ones, if you see something in your mind, the vision has been placed there for a reason, and sometimes you're the only one who can see it, and that's for a reason. There might have other people who probably you never see the. Sometimes you articulate your dream or your vision to someone, and they look at you like you're crazy. And there's a reason for that, because the vision was given to you. So if your vision is placed in your mind for a reason, it's because you're the only one that can see it. You are the one who have to go out and execute it. You are the one who have to go and figure out what it is that I'm supposed to do with this. And the vision will oftentimes be blurry. It will not make sense, especially in the beginning. You're like, okay, what is this all about? Okay, but you just know in your heart, just like Raya said from, previously, you have to listen to that voice within you. It's going to guide you. It's going to take you on that journey. And so for me, I just knew that I love my island. It's beautiful. I am from a great culture and great sense of community, but I knew there was something more for me. There's a whole world out there. And so I always held on to dreams. My mom was also a teacher, and she always emphasized on the importance of education. And so no matter what, and let me tell you, I wrote a book, it's called A Girl Like Me. And so I talk about my story. And so the early formative years, I didn't think any of this would be possible because my mom had 6 of us from a single parent household. So I said, traveling the world is not for a girl like me. It's not going to happen. But still, I had my imagination and I believed. And I always held on to that. And so fast forward, I was able to migrate to the United States. I was able to attain an education. And when I finished my bachelor's degree in the United States, again, the imagination, I went back to the dream as a little girl of what I wanted to do. And I looked around and I said, you know what? Everybody I knew from the Caribbean who was going away to further their education either went to the UK or they went to Canada. And I thought, there's a whole world out there. Why are we limiting ourselves to the UK and Canada? Great countries, but there is more. And so I wanted to, explore some more. And so I went and something came into my head again, a vision. And I said, I am going to Australia. Australia, I don't know anybody in Australia. If you had shown me where Australia is on the map, I wouldn't be able to tell you. And so but in my vision, I said, I have to go to Australia. And one of the things I've always been very careful is doing, even as a young girl, is that I realized that everyone have their own fear for themselves. And so sometimes, although we're doing good by sharing with others what our dreams are, we also have to be careful because people can project their fears onto us, right? And when they project their fears, we like, oh, you know what? Maybe I'm not going to do that. But not everybody's story is the same, okay? Jill might try something and it may not work. That doesn't mean that will be your destiny, right? And so I always knew I had a big imagination and big dreams. And so I didn't want to share it with everybody because I didn't want to say, oh, why are you going to do that? Why would you do that? Oh, I did that and this happened. So, I said, you know what? I am going to go to Australia. So I applied to the schools. I went to the guidance counselor at my school. I told her I really want to go to grad school in Australia. And she looked at me like I was crazy because I wanted financial aid to pay for this. And she said, there's no way that you will get a financial aid with a school abroad. And so just me being me, I never took no for an answer. So I went and did my own research and I found out that, actually the United States is affiliated with universities all over the world. And so as long as I was able to get in and they're affiliated with the universities over here, bam. So I did, and I was able to get in. I got that financial aid and I moved to Australia. And that's the next point I would like to leave with you ladies today. Always take the first step without seeing the staircase. Sometimes, we always think that we have to have everything together to take that leap of faith. No, that's why it's called a leap of faith. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to have everything in place. You just, again, have to listen to that voice inside that's saying to you, hey, you need to do this. You don't know why. You just know in your head that something is leading, is so strong, it's beyond you. And so it is with those daring, that they say that life begins at the end of our comfort zone. It is true. When you look back on your life, think about your life. When you have made decisions or when you have succeeded in something, it's when you have taken a really daring step, when you have went outside of your comfort zone, where you did something that was not something that was familiar to you. And there you're going to have those results. And for me, I didn't know where I was going or what. I just knew I had to do it. And so I got on that plane, went to Australia, and it changed the trajectory of my entire life. Going over there, America is a very diverse country, but I was able to connect with people from all over, from Africa, from Asia, from Europe. I also went into a political science international relations program, and my undergrad was in communication. So for a minute, I got so scared because I felt a little bit lost. I was like, oh my God, I'm in over my head. International relations is not my background. What am I going to do? And I wanted to quit. I have to say, I was like, there was just so much material, so much work, and everybody around me seemed like they were just so way ahead. And so, but something again, my head inside of me, listen, I didn't bring you all this way for you to quit and leave you stranded out in Australia. You're going to get through it. And so I challenged myself again to stick with that program, to get it, to familiarize myself with something that I was way in over my head, but it was the best thing I ever did for myself because it instilled confidence. I learned so much, and it opened a door to opportunities that you wouldn't even imagine. And so from that step, moving to Australia, the entire trajectory of my life changed because then I got an opportunity to go to China. So I went over to China, I taught over in China, then I went over to Japan, I taught over in Japan. And while I was teaching there, I also got even further opportunities to help develop the curriculum, okay? And so for me, my goal was to become an ambassador for my country one day. So I was on this track and saying, okay, I'm going to travel to other countries and learn about other cultures and volunteer and intern and do everything I can so I could become that ambassador. And so I was on the journey and traveling. And while on there, I met my now ex-husband. And so I moved to Sweden, where I lived for 5 years over in Sweden. And we had our own company, so we learned a lot about entrepreneurship and living in different cultures and traveling the world. And for me, as I said, had I not taken that step and gone on that plane and gone to Australia, I'm not saying that the journey has been, totally flowers and lilies the whole way. There were so many lessons to learn along the way, but it helped to shape me. It helped me to discover who I am. It helped me to really tune into my greatness, right? This is only we can activate. So one of the things, and in my book, A Girl Like Me, I was really able to focus on is to tell women to stay true to yourself, because on the journey, I was there on my journey. I was following my path and doing the things I wanted to. And I felt a lot of pressure from my now ex-husband, not only to move to Sweden, but also to get married. And I really wasn't ready. At the time, I think I was really just thinking, no, I'm not ready for that as yet. But then there was also that other voice in my head saying, you know what, you're 28, you probably being selfish, you've already traveled, you've already attained, maybe you should. And I went against the voice in my head that I was saying, you know what, you're on your path, you're not there yet, you still have ways to go, you're not ready. I went against that voice. And so I went over and I moved to Sweden. And of course, it's a wonderful place. It's a great experience. But again, I learned a lot from that experience because I went against that voice in myself. And when you go over and you give up your independence and you give up so much, there's a price to pay for that. So I read a little bit more about that in the book. But anyway, after 5 years, I got a divorce and I moved back to the United States. And I'm trying to figure out now, what would I be doing with my life? What will I do? What's now for me? We all go through those moments, ladies, where we are going to feel lost. We are going to feel like even if we are strong and powerful and independent and going, there are times where we feel like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do now? And I know you've all been in that place in your life. I know when the lovely lady from Kenya was talking about losing everything and having to start over. And that's what life is about, constantly having to reinvent yourself, having to start over, having to learn, having to grow. It's continuous. But no matter what, you got to just keep going forward and just keep being in touch with yourself. And so for me, I started to go back to that little girl in my head of thinking, what is it that I love to do? What made me happy? I started to tune into that voice I had shut out, And so for me, I started doing charity work, which I always enjoy. Service. I love doing service. But from that, I would always go out in the community and speak to young boys and girls. And I loved it. I love teaching. So I started writing children's books. And I wrote my book, A Girl Like Me, talking about the journey and the travel, especially from the young boys and girls in my country who had a dream for their life, to tell them all the steps that I took and how, it wasn't always easy, but how I learned and grew. And from that, I started writing children's books. And from writing and going out there and creating campaigns to raise awareness on issues I was passionate about, I wrote a book called Be a Buddy, Not a Bully, because I was really concerned about, all the bullying happening, not in schools, and I taught all over. So I really thought, what, I'm going to be the change I wish to see and create a program for change. And so I focused on the buddy. I said, what? We're always focusing on the bully, on the bully. And when I think of children, I think there are no bad children. There are children making bad choices. And so if we could empower them, to go to the root of the problem and try to figure out why is it that they are acting up? Why are they making those choices? And also, if they have great examples of what it means to be a buddy, maybe we can create that shift that we want, And so I wrote the story and I created this campaign, including with a buddy bench, which we place in schools. And with that, it really just took off. And lots of partnerships and a lot of people came on board. And it really helped me really birth my purpose. So I just want to say to you today that you're not always going to have the answers, for everything. You're not going to have the answers for everything that you're going to do. Sometimes the vision is going to be blurry. Sometimes you're going to get off course. Sometimes you're going to feel completely lost. But what is really rewarding is when you really stay true to yourself and listen to that voice inside of you and really take that step without seeing the staircase. It's like you really find yourself on a path and it opens up the door. The universe opens up to show you so much when you are willing to take that step. One of the things that I do a lot of work with small groups of teenage young girls and also women. And I wrote something which I'm going to live with you today. I always remind them of, and they love it. Everybody wants to be successful. Everybody wants to tap into their greatness, and they sometimes don't understand the price that comes with, right? Or what it entails, because we see all the women there, but we all have a story. And a lot of it is really breaking down some serious barriers, right? And so I said to them, just a few points for success. If you are truly, really wanting success and really tapping into your greatest self, here's a few things to consider. If you don't want to be talked about, you are not ready for success. If you don't want to face rejection, you are not ready for success. If you don't want to fail and make mistakes, you are not ready for success. If you don't like stepping outside of your comfort zone, you are not ready for success. If you don't want to face your fears, you are not ready for success. If you don't like your own company, you are not ready for success. If you always want to be liked, you are not ready for success. If you are not willing to take risks, you are not ready for success. If you crumble in the face of adversity and criticism, you are not ready for success. If you don't want to be ridiculed or told you're crazy, you are not ready for success. If you are afraid to walk the road alone, you are not ready for success. If you are willing to face all of the above head on, be your authentic self, and keep working on yourself every single day, you are ready for success. So today I want to encourage you to press on, to challenge yourself. The greatest work that you will ever do is on yourself. It's not about other people. It's not about other women. It's not, the deadly comparison, it's what destroys us. It's about yourself. So I challenge you to challenge yourself and to embrace the vision in your head that you can see, and only you can see it for a reason, because it's going to lead to so much that you will never be on your wildest imagination. I know, because look, it happened for a girl like me. Thank you.
Oh, lovely. Thank you. What a way to end the talks this morning. I mean, how incredible. And firstly, bless you for turning up today. And you just know that every single person on this call is sending so much love and healing vibes to you. So please do look after yourself. Get well. Keep in touch and let me know how you are, because I know I'll have loads of people asking me how's lovely. So
thank you.
So look after yourself, and we wish you well, and thank you so much for
You're welcome.
taking the time to join us. It's some amazing things. I loved where you started with imagination. And I think I'm probably wrong, and I'm sure somebody will tell me if I'm wrong, that it was Einstein who said imagination is creating your future history. Because that's where it all starts. If we don't have that imagination, we don't take that first step. And you're absolutely right. We don't need to see the whole staircase to take that first step. We really don't. And sometimes seeing the whole staircase can actually hold us back, because sometimes not knowing where we're going to end up allows us to reach even further and go even further within ourselves. And life isn't easy, but we are unbelievably adaptable and resilient as human beings, and as women we have this core strength within us that is so incredibly powerful. At the age of 61, when I look at myself in the mirror every day and I look at the woman looking back at me, I like and admire and respect her, and I know she is the direct result of every single experience I've had in 61 years, and there have been some seriously traumatic experiences in those 61 years, and I don't regret a single one of them. Because without them, there would be somebody different looking back at me in the mirror. So everything is worthwhile and everything is valuable. And yes, your vision is your vision, nobody else's. And you're right. The fears are other people's fears. They are not our fears. And to be aware of what people are projecting onto us is really, really important. So fantastic. Thank you so much. Lovely. And particularly with you not being well. Really, thank you so much. Look after yourself. We are rapidly running out of time, so probably not time for a 20-minute Q&A unless we carry on until 1:30, which I'm sure we've all got other things to be doing. I would just like to ask actually one question to our first speaker this in the second half, to Anna. I think, Anna, because the World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts is representing and building and flourishing that next generation of young women in the world, perhaps I could come to you and say, is there, in 2021, is there a particular project or focus that the World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts is concentrating on?
We've just done quite a lot of research with girls and young women to look at the issues that are of particular concern to them. And I think I'd probably just leave with the top three. And one of them is inequality. I mean, the key thing that all of the girls and young women interviewed talked about was we don't have equal rights. And when I think back to when I was in my 20s and I'm now in my 50s and we haven't got there yet, it's devastating. So I think equality for girls and young women, and the pressure of appearance-related anxiety. We run a lot of really nice programs about body confidence and free being me advocacy. And the number of girls and young women who said that's a been a big driving factor in their lives, and they also talk about it as really important for the next generation of political leaders, that they should be judged for what they do and what they say and not how they look. So I think there's some really smart thinking going on, but a lot of work still required. And then violence against girls and young women. So those are the three big ticket items that the girls and young women across the world are talking about. So I think for us, they're key.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And how wonderful to get that from those girls and young women, that they're key in their mind of things to focus on. Thank you so much, Anna. Laura, perhaps we could come to you to do a few closing remarks on the most amazing morning that we've had.
Yes, thank you, Katie, and a huge thank you to every single speaker we've had today. They've been truly inspirational, and thank you, Katie, for being inspirational yourself and arranging all of this. I think what's come over for me is that I've been really energized by all of the stories, and it's expanded, I think, everybody who's been listening, the horizon on what is possible, and an acknowledgement that we've all faced challenges in our lives, and there is that resilience there, and a permission that we have to give ourselves to be who we want to be. And for me, it's a generosity for myself and a generosity for others, which has enabled me to do what I've done. And that comes from a place of love as well, and love of potential of the women that surround us. And I think the speakers have told us about some really chunky challenges they've had to face. And I think it's also important for those of us that are listening is that we also have our own challenges. We're challenging all the time. We should congratulate ourselves for the successes that we've been doing. And those, for some women, just carving 10 minutes aside to have a cup of tea or coffee in peace and quiet is one of the biggest challenges they can face in the day. So whatever it is, whatever challenge you have chosen to take on board, congratulate yourself. And once again, an enormous thank you to everybody that's contributed to today, and all the people in the background as well that have worked so hard to put this on. Big love to everybody, and please keep the contacts going, and let's support each other as well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Laura. Well, it's been a joy. I'm delighted to see that my offerings to the technology gods worked, because it has been seamless for the whole 3 hours, which is absolutely incredible. I would just like to thank every single woman on the planet for being who you are. Even though you can't hear me, I hope you receive my love, because every single woman on this planet is truly awesome, as is every man. Every single human being on this planet is amazing. International Women's Day is an incredible day for us to celebrate ourselves and to celebrate each other. The power of female solidarity. With that, we can achieve anything. I would just like to close with one of my favourite poems from an amazing woman called Marianne Williamson, and it's called Our Deepest Fear. So I would just like you to hear these words and have them going through every fibre of your being out into the future. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? Your playing small doesn't serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that others don't feel insecure around you. You are meant to shine, as children do. You are born to make manifest the glory that is within you. It is not in some of you, it is in everyone. And as we allow our own light to shine, we instinctively give others permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our fear, so our presence automatically liberates others. So to all the wonderful women around the world on International Women's Day 2021, I urge you to let go of your fear, take centre stage into the spotlight of your magnificence and shine brightly because the world needs you. Thank you all so much and goodbye.